People who start gambling underage develop a gambling addiction 2 to 7% of the time. People who start when they become adults only develop the addiction 1% of the time. Welcome back to the One Day at a Time Gambling Addiction Podcast. Today's solo episode, I'm going to be talking about how gambling addiction is affecting people who are younger and younger every single year. When I started gambling, I was about 18 years old, but there were times in my life that I was doing things that could be considered gambling well before I got into legalized sports gambling. So if I think back to when I was probably about 13 or 14, I was getting to be the age where I was 4 years older than my little brother, and I was trying to get him to continue playing sports with me outside, even though I'd typically win because I was further along in my development. So the only way that I could get him to play was to offer him some form of incentive to play against the odds. So I'd say, hey, if you come and play hockey with me out front, if you win, I'll give you $20. And I'll let you start winning 3-0 and we'll play to 5. Something like that. And that gave me this big rush, like, oh, I have something to play for now, I have something to protect. Even though I couldn't win anything, I'm still considering that gambling in my mind because it was the same feelings going on in my brain as it would be 5 years later when I started to play daily fantasy sports through FanDuel and DraftKings. When I started those apps, I had this idea that I knew so much about sports because that was my personality at the time. I watched sports, that's what I did on a daily basis, nightly basis, and I thought I knew a lot based on what I had seen. So when I started playing and I actually got a few wins right in the beginning, it reinforced this idea that I was going to be a professional gambler or that sports were profitable if I kept gambling on them in the long term. This went up and down for the course of that year, and I eventually ended up at a point where I had to stop gambling, get a second job in order to pay down debt. This is a process that would repeat itself many times over the next 6 years, really getting worse when I turned 21 and I started to gamble on sports with the sportsbook apps such as FanDuel and DraftKings once again. Then things continued to devolve over the next 3 years, and I ended up gambling for between 6 to 8 hours per day, almost every day of the week. So I give those numbers as averages to illustrate the fact that I spent about 2 years worth of 24-hour days placing bets between the age of 18 and 23. Life was not good when I was gambling. And the reason it wasn't good is because I convinced myself that my entire identity was built around whether or not I won or lost money gambling. When you do that, and it's something that's completely out of your control that's determining the value of your days, you're going to have a lot of days where it's simply going to go badly and you can't do anything about it. We have this idea that we're in control when we're gambling, but that couldn't be further from the truth. They sell you this idea that you can make the pick, so you can use your knowledge of what's happened in previous games to infer what's going to happen in this next game. And the truth is that there's so much randomness within sports that past performances don't imply future results at all. And that leads to bigger losses as you begin to get cocky and invest in yourself more. I saw some alarming statistics that between 35 and 40% of men between the ages of 18 and 30 considered sports gambling income to be a part of their actual income, which is really concerning. What was once a game of chance has now become something that people are supporting their financial well-being with. This is a temporary situation at best. When it comes to short term, anything can happen. You could string together a few wins and you could think that you're on the top of the world, you're the king of gambling, and you're the best. You have the edge over everyone else. But if you keep placing bets over the long term, things aren't going to go your way. You're eventually going to stack up losses that are bigger than even your previous wins, and then you're going to end up digging yourself into a hole that you feel like you can only get out of by continuing to gamble. Now, of course, we know afterwards that continuing to gamble to try to get out of a situation that you put yourself in by gambling is ridiculous. But we don't see it that way when we're in action. We think, oh, the only way to get this money quick is to win it, and we should place a bet to do so. This leads to a really dangerous cycle where we continue to live the same day over and over again, and even when we break even or go up, it's never enough, because for gambling addicts, wins are just future losses. So again, going back to what I said right in the beginning, 2 to 7% of people who start gambling underage will develop a gambling disorder, whereas only 1% will develop a gambling disorder when they start of legal age. And when you think about it that way, it becomes much more important that we're verifying people's age when they go to gamble, which is not what's happening right now with the crypto casinos online. Right now, if you wanted to go gamble, it would take you 5 minutes in a crypto wallet to be able to put money in and start placing bets. Of course, it gets a little bit murkier when it comes to withdrawing, but that's a problem for later on. When you go and you place a bet and you don't get KYC'd, which is know your customer, when you don't get your ID checked, you can gamble. And that's the sad reality of what we're dealing with today. So we need to see more stringent checks, but there's no incentive for casinos to actually stick to that unless it's enforced by a government. and the government gets paid by the casinos for allowing them to do what they do. So you can see why we're in a bad situation here, especially as a younger audience. So what I'll tell you is you should know yourself. And if you're going and you're gambling and it's not entertainment, you're doing it because you're chasing a feeling, you're chasing losses, or because you've made it your entire purpose in life, just stop. You're going to lead yourself down a path where you're going to end up incurring huge losses, you're going to end up having bad days, and you're going to make your whole life based on whether or not something happens that's completely out of your control. What you need to do is know yourself once again and find things that give you purpose in your life. You're not going to get purpose by playing blackjack or roulette. I can tell you that as a fact. As someone who's tried to make that their purpose, there's just nothing meaningful in it. You're not giving anything to the world. What you need to do to find your purpose is get out there and try new things that aren't going to bring you down. Hit the gym, go for a walk, go for a run, play pickleball, play tennis, basketball, go and volunteer somewhere, read a book, meditate, do hot yoga. There's so many things that you could be doing that aren't gambling that could lead you closer to your purpose. I just hate to see people going down this path thinking that it's glamorous to gamble. If you gamble, you will lose. That's what the people online aren't telling you right now. I'll tell you. I'll break the bad news to you. If you go and you keep placing bets, there's going to come a day where you lose it all and you keep going. This is for gambling addicts. Not everyone's a gambling addict, but if you're watching this video, there's a decent chance that you might have a problem. And if you do, you're not alone. Seek the help that you need. Down in the description, I'm linking a PDF that I've made with all the resources that I'm aware of to recover from a gambling addiction. Check that out. It's 100% free. If you want to get better and you want to join a community of people who are seeking to stop gambling today and live a healthier life without the chaos of gambling, smash that subscribe button. I know that we can keep getting better together, one day at a time.